You know that moment when someone says something and it just lands wrong, and suddenly you feel this tiny spark of irritation and you have to decide in a split second whether to say something or let it go?
Oh, absolutely. And usually my brain votes for let it go, but my mouth has already jumped in with, well, actually, and then we're off to the races. It's like my mouth has a mind of its own.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to dig into today. Not just arguing, but the whole messy process of resolving a conflict. Because most of us dread it, right? We either avoid it completely or we handle it in a way that makes things 10 times worse.
Right. And it's funny because conflict itself isn't the problem. It's how we dance around it. I mean, the word conflict alone makes people tense up. You say, we need to talk, and immediately everyone's stomach drops.
Ugh, those 4 words are the worst. We need to talk. No one ever follows that with, I got us free concert tickets. It's always something serious. So let's unpack this. What's really going on in our brains when a conflict pops up?
Well, our brains basically treat social conflict like a physical threat. The amygdala, this little almond-shaped part of the brain, lights up like it's a fire alarm. So you're not just having a disagreement about whose turn it is to do the dishes. Your body genuinely thinks you're under attack.
That explains so much. My heart races, my palms get sweaty, and I suddenly forget every calm, reasonable word I've ever learned. It's like my vocabulary shrinks to, no, you're wrong.
The most sophisticated comeback in human history. But seriously, that's the amygdala hijack. Your rational brain basically takes a back seat and the emotional brain grabs the wheel. That's why conflict resolution isn't just about being nice. It's almost a physiological skill.
So before we even get to resolving anything, we have to manage our own nervous system. That feels like the step everyone skips. We just dive right into the argument while we're still flooded with adrenaline.
Totally. And that's like trying to have a calm discussion while a bear is chasing you. It's not going to end well. The first tool is literally just pausing, taking a breath, counting to 5, whatever works. I know it sounds so basic, but I used to roll my eyes at that advice until I actually tried it.
I had the same experience. I thought deep breathing was just something yoga instructors say. But during a heated moment with my sister last year, I literally said, "Give me a minute," and walked into the kitchen. I just stood there breathing for maybe 20 seconds, and it completely shifted something.
Did she think you'd lost your mind?
Probably. She asked if I was looking for snacks. But when I came back, I wasn't trying to win anymore. I was actually listening. And that's the game changer, right? The shift from trying to win to trying to understand.
That's the core of it. So many of us approach conflict like a courtroom drama. I'm going to present my evidence, cross-examine your points, and the jury will find me innocent. But relationships don't work like that. It's not law and order. It's more like gardening.
Gardening. Okay, I need you to connect those dots for me.
Well, in a garden, if you start yanking at weeds aggressively, you damage the roots of the plants you actually want. Conflict is similar. You can't just bulldoze through it. You have to gently untangle the problem without destroying the relationship in the process.
That's actually a beautiful metaphor. And it makes me think about language, the actual words we choose. Because words are the tools we use to untangle, right? A phrase like, "you always do this," is basically a verbal bulldozer.
Exactly. You always and you never are what I call conversation grenades. The moment you say one, everything explodes. The other person stops hearing your point and just hears an attack on their character. They immediately go into defense mode, pulling up specific examples in their head of when they did do the thing.
Right, and suddenly we're arguing about a random Tuesday in 2019 when they did indeed take out the trash without being asked, and the original point is long gone. So what's the alternative? How do you phrase a complaint without making it personal?
The classic technique, and it's classic for a reason, is the I statement. Instead of, "you never listen to me," you say, "I feel unheard when I'm talking and you're on your phone." It's not accusatory, it's descriptive. You're owning your feeling rather than pointing a finger at their flaw.
And that little shift changes the whole dynamic.
You're not attacking them, you're inviting them into your experience. It feels vulnerable, though. That's the scary part. It's much easier to be angry and accusatory than to say, "This hurt me."
Because anger feels powerful and vulnerability feels weak. But in conflict resolution, vulnerability is actually the power move. It disarms people. When you say, "I felt really embarrassed when that happened," the other person's natural aggression often just deflates, unless they're completely heartless, which most people aren't.
Most people aren't, thankfully. But what about when you're dealing with someone who shuts down completely? The avoider. You're trying to use your I statements, you're being vulnerable, and they just say, "It's fine," and leave the room.
Ugh, the "it's fine" that really means it is absolutely not fine, and I'm burying this deep inside where it will ferment into resentment. That's a tough one. Usually people stonewall like that because they're overwhelmed. Pushing harder just makes them retreat further.
So you give them space? But how do you do that without dropping the issue entirely?
That's the key. You name the process without forcing the conversation. You say something like, "I can see this is a lot right now. I want to understand where you're coming from, but we don't have to solve it this second. Can we circle back to this tonight after dinner?"
Circle back to this. I love that phrase. It's professional but gentle. It makes a promise that the conversation isn't over, but you're also not holding them hostage right now.
Exactly. And you have to actually follow through. If you say you'll circle back and you don't, you lose all trust. The avoider learns, "See, if I just wait it out, it disappears." And that builds a really unhealthy pattern.
Patterns. That's such a crucial word here. Most conflicts aren't really about the surface thing anyway. You're arguing about the toothpaste cap, but you're really arguing about feeling disrespected or not being a team.
Always. The cap is just the mascot for a deeper issue. I remember a silly fight I had with my roommate years ago. It was about whose turn it was to buy paper towels. Paper towels! We were both storming around the apartment over something that cost $3.
And what was it really about?
Looking back, I was overwhelmed with work, feeling like I was carrying the mental load for the whole household. And he was feeling micromanaged, like I was constantly keeping score. The paper towels were just the thing that finally tipped us over the edge.
That's such a relatable example. The mental load, that invisible list of everything that needs to be remembered and done. It's a huge source of hidden conflict in families and workplaces. So how did you two actually resolve it?
Painfully at first, I'll admit. We had a blow-up. But then the next day, we sat down and had what I now call a meta conversation. A conversation about how we have conversations. I admitted I was keeping score, and he admitted he felt like he could never do anything right. That vulnerability piece again. It was terrifying, but it cut right through the nonsense.
The meta conversation. So you're stepping back and saying, let's not talk about the issue yet. Let's talk about how we're going to talk about the issue. That's brilliant.
It sounds very clinical, but it works. And part of that is learning to listen to understand, not listening to respond. When the other person is talking, most of us are just mentally rehearsing our rebuttal. We're not actually hearing them.
Guilty as charged. I'm definitely guilty of that. My brain is spinning, preparing my counter-argument, polishing the perfect sentence. Meanwhile, the other person is sharing something important, and I'm completely missing it.
Active listening is the antidote to that. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but at its core, it means reflecting back what you heard. So what I'm hearing is that when I interrupt you, you feel like I don't value your opinion. Is that right? You're not agreeing. You're just confirming you understand.
And that small act of checking for understanding does something magical. The other person feels seen. Even if you still disagree, they know you actually get it. That alone can lower the temperature by about 50 degrees.
Absolutely. And sometimes when you say their point back to them, they might even say, "Well, no, not exactly." And they refine it, which is great because now you're collaborating to name the real problem. You're on the same side of the table looking at the problem together.
Versus being on opposite sides, throwing the problem back and forth like a hot potato. That's the mindset shift, right? It's not you versus me. It's us versus the issue. But achieving that mindset when you're genuinely angry is so hard.
It's incredibly hard. And there's one skill that doesn't get enough credit: recognizing when to call a timeout.
The official term for this is the physiological self-soothing break. If your heart rate is above 100 beats per minute, you are cognitively incapable of having a productive conversation. The prefrontal cortex just goes offline.
That's fascinating. So there's actual biology behind why we should take a break. It's not weakness, it's neuroscience. We need to let our nervous system settle down before our brain can function properly again.
Exactly. The rule of thumb is a break of at least 20 minutes, and you have to actively not ruminate. You can't just sit there stewing and replaying the argument in your head. You have to actively distract yourself. Read something, take a walk, listen to a podcast, preferably this podcast.
A nice conflict-free podcast, of course. Listen to us chat while your blood pressure drops. But seriously, that's such practical advice. The stewing part is what I always get wrong. I take a break, but I spend the entire break mentally winning the argument.
And then you come back even more fired up. It defeats the purpose entirely. The goal is to return when you're genuinely calm, not when you've just crafted the ultimate verbal takedown. That's a revenge break, not a reset break.
A revenge break. I love that. I've taken so many revenge breaks in my life. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about apologizing? Because a lot of conflict resolution hinges on a genuine apology, but so many apologies are, frankly, terrible.
Oh, I have a whole rant about fake apologies. Ready? I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry you feel that way. Mistakes were made. All of these are non-apologies. They shift the blame onto the other person's feelings or use passive voice to dodge responsibility.
That passive voice one is a classic politician move. Mistakes were made. By whom? The ghost of bad decisions? A real apology names the action, acknowledges the impact, and shows a commitment to change. I'm sorry I raised my voice. It was disrespectful, and I imagine it made you feel small. I'm working on managing my temper.
That's a masterclass apology right there. Name it, own the impact, state the change. It's not, I'm sorry, but you were driving me crazy. That little but erases the entire apology. It's like saying, I'm sorry, except I'm not, and here's why it was actually your fault.
The but is the apology killer. As soon as you hear that but, you know the other shoe is about to drop, and it's going to land right on your head. So for our listeners working on their English, I'm sorry, but is a red flag. In any language, probably.
Absolutely. In any language, it's a conversational trap. And on the flip side, accepting an apology is also a skill. If someone gives you a genuine, heartfelt apology, and you just say, whatever, or throw their mistake back in their face, the conflict never really ends.
Right, because now they feel resentful. They made themselves vulnerable, and you slapped it away. A simple, thank you, I appreciate you saying that, it means a lot, can actually repair a relationship. You're not saying it's all forgotten, but you're honoring their effort.
And you can still say, I need a little time to process this, but I accept your apology. That sets a boundary while still moving forward. It's honest. Pretending everything is magically perfect again just creates festering wounds. That's another great phrasal verb, to fester. It means a wound becomes infected and gets worse over time. Unresolved conflict does exactly that.
Festering wounds. A slightly gross but very accurate image. So we've talked about taking breaks, using I statements, active listening, genuine apologies. But what happens when none of that works? When the other person is just not engaging in good faith?
That's when you have to shift from resolution to damage control. You can't force someone to resolve a conflict with you. If they're yelling, belittling, or just stonewalling forever, your job becomes protecting your own peace. You say, I'm not willing to have this conversation if we can't do it respectfully. Let's try again when we can.
That's a boundary. And a boundary isn't a threat, it's a rule for yourself about what you will and won't accept. If you shout, I'm going to leave the room. It's not punishing them, it's protecting you.
Exactly. And it's honestly one of the hardest things to do, especially with people we love. We want the resolution so badly that we accept terrible behavior just to get to the finish line. But resolution without respect is a hollow victory.
Hollow victory. I'm writing that down. It's true. You might win, but you lose a piece of the relationship in the process. So learning to walk away from a disrespectful exchange is actually a form of wisdom, not defeat.
Right, which brings us to cultural differences too. I mean, the way you resolve conflict in one culture can be completely inappropriate in another. Some cultures value direct confrontation, laying everything on the table. Others value indirect communication and saving face. If you're in an international workplace or relationship, you're navigating multiple rule books at once.
That is such a crucial layer. You might be using your I statements perfectly, feeling very proud of your directness, and the other person is completely mortified because in their cultural context, that directness is deeply disrespectful. They're not avoiding the conflict, they're avoiding your approach.
And saving face. That's the concept of not humiliating someone publicly. In many cultures, a conflict should be handled privately, subtly, maybe even through a trusted third party. If you jump into a group email demanding a resolution, you've just committed a massive social faux pas.
A faux pas, that's a French term we use in English. It means a social blunder, a breach of etiquette. And in a conflict, it can escalate things faster than anything. So for our listeners, especially those working in multinational teams, it's worth asking, what's the culturally appropriate way to approach this?
Totally. You might ask a trusted colleague from that culture for advice. That's another good phrasal verb, to reach out to someone. I reached out to Maria for her perspective before the meeting. It shows respect and humility.
And humility is at the heart of all of this, isn't it? The willingness to say, I might be wrong. I might be seeing this totally incorrectly. Help me understand. That takes a lot of ego strength.
It's counterintuitive. We think standing our ground and being rigid shows strength, but real strength is being flexible enough to say, you know what? I hadn't considered that. Tell me more. The phrase, tell me more, is one of the most disarming conflict resolution tools I know.
Tell me more. It's simple, but it signals genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Suddenly, the other person doesn't feel cornered. They feel invited. What about humor, Jake? You're the funny one here. Can humor help, or does it just make things worse?
Humor is a double-edged sword. It can be amazing when it's shared laughter about the ridiculousness of the situation. Like, look at us, fighting over paper towels. We're grown adults. That kind of humor can break the tension. But sarcasm at the other person's expense, that's just a weapon.
Right, because it's passive-aggressive. You're scoring a point while pretending to be lighthearted. Oh, nice of you to finally show up on time. That's not humor. That's a jab disguised as a joke. It never lands well.
Never. The target hears the jab loud and clear, and now they're both hurt and annoyed that you're pretending it was just a joke. It's a good way to add a whole second layer of conflict on top of the original one. I've been guilty of it, I admit. It's a hard habit to break.
Me too. It feels like a safe way to express anger, but it's actually incredibly corrosive. It slowly erodes trust. So good humor in conflict is us against the absurdity of the situation, never me against you.
Perfectly put. And along with humor, sometimes you just need to take a beat and acknowledge what the other person did well. Look, I'm frustrated about this, but I really do appreciate how quickly you responded to the email earlier. You're balancing the criticism with genuine praise. It shows you're not just painting them as a villain in your head.
That's the feedback sandwich, isn't it? Positive, negative, positive. But sometimes that can feel a bit formulaic. Is it better to just be authentically appreciative in the moment?
I think authenticity is key. If it feels like a robotic sandwich, it falls flat. But if you genuinely mean it, slipping in a moment of appreciation during a disagreement is disorienting in the best way. Their brain goes, wait, I thought we were enemies right now, and it can lower defenses instantly.
It reminds them you're a human who still sees them. So let's bring this into an everyday context many of our listeners will relate to. A disagreement with a boss or a colleague, because the power dynamics there make it even trickier.
Massively trickier. The I statement rule still applies, but you have to be even more strategic. You frame it around the work. Instead of, you gave me unclear instructions, you say, I realized I didn't fully grasp the scope of the project from the initial brief. Could we carve out a few minutes to align on the key deliverables?
Carve out, align, key deliverables. You're using business English that's solution-oriented.
You're not accusing your boss of being bad at their job. You're collaborating on a process improvement. That's navigating office politics with grace.
Right, you're making it easy for them to say yes. You're not bringing a problem. You're bringing a problem and a proposed solution. It changes the entire tone of the conversation. And it also creates a paper trail of you being proactive, which is never a bad thing.
Smart. And what about dealing with a peer who takes credit for your work? That's a conflict that feels incredibly personal and unfair.
That one stings. The temptation is to go in hot and accuse them of stealing your idea. But a smarter play is to gently and publicly reattach your name to the work. In the next meeting, you could say, "Thanks, Dave, for expanding on the initial proposal I put together. I'm really glad the core concept resonated with the team." Subtle, but unmistakable.
Smooth. You're not calling him a thief, but everyone in the room now knows the idea originated with you. You're reclaiming your ownership without creating a dramatic scene. That's advanced level conflict resolution.
Advanced level indeed. It's about picking your battles and your battlefield. Not every hill is worth dying on, as the idiom goes. Sometimes the conflict is about the short-term victory, and sometimes it's about the long-term reputation.
Pick your battles. That's a crucial piece of wisdom. Some things just aren't worth the emotional drain. You have to ask yourself, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, maybe it's a moment for quiet boundary setting or just letting it slide.
And letting it slide isn't always weak. It's just consciously choosing not to invest energy in something trivial. I have a limited emotional budget for the day. I can't be spending it on every minor annoyance. I'd go bankrupt.
An emotional budget. I need to create a spreadsheet for that. Okay, let's talk about the aftermath. The argument is resolved, the apology is made, the agreement is in place. Then what? How do you move from resolution back to normalcy?
That's the repair phase, and it's often overlooked. You can't just expect things to snap back instantly. It takes a few positive interactions to rebuild the good vibes. A little extra kindness, a check-in text, a shared laugh. It's like physical therapy for a slightly injured muscle.
That's a perfect analogy. The trust muscle might still be a bit inflamed. You need to gently exercise it with small positive moments. And you also need to honor the agreement you made. If you committed to being more mindful about a certain thing, you actually have to do it.
Nothing kills a resolution faster than an immediate relapse. If you said you'd address the emails by Friday, and Friday comes and goes with nothing, the next conflict is going to be 10 times worse because now there's evidence you don't keep your word. Consistency is the glue of repair.
Consistency builds safety, and when people feel safe, they're more honest, more flexible, and more willing to engage in the messy work of resolving the next conflict. Because there will always be a next one. Conflict is just part of being human.
I think that's the most important takeaway. Conflict isn't a sign of a broken relationship. Perfectly healthy relationships have conflict. The difference is in the repair. Relationships that last aren't the ones without cracks. They're the ones where the cracks are filled in with gold, like the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Kintsugi, yes. The art of repairing broken pottery with gold lacquer, making the cracks a beautiful, highlighted part of the object's history. A relationship with no conflict has no depth. A relationship that's weathered storms and been repaired is unique and beautiful.
Exactly. You don't just fix it, you make it stronger and more valuable because of the break. So the next time you're in a conflict and your amygdala is screaming, you can take a breath and think, okay, this is an opportunity for gold.
An opportunity for gold. I love that. It reframes the whole scary experience. Okay, so for our listeners who are learning all this vocabulary and these concepts in English, let's quickly recap some of the phrases we naturally wove in.
Good idea. We talked about festering wounds, which is when a problem gets worse because it's ignored. We had meta-conversation, a talk about how to talk, and a hollow victory, a win that feels empty. We also used the idiom pick your battles, meaning to choose which conflicts are worth your energy.
And we discussed I statements, where you own your feeling. I feel frustrated when... We touched on saving face, avoiding public humiliation, and to ruminate, which is that destructive loop of replaying an argument in your head. That's a good one to avoid.
Absolutely. Don't ruminate, rejuvenate. That should be a bumper sticker. We also mentioned the emotional budget, the idea that you only have so much emotional energy to spend each day. Spend it wisely on conflicts that truly matter to you.
And you gave us the lovely gardening metaphor, untangling the roots gently instead of bulldozing, and the kintsugi philosophy, which reminds us that a relationship can be more beautiful after the repair. All of these are just tools to help you move through a conflict with a bit more grace.
Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to never have another disagreement. The goal is to come out the other side feeling heard, feeling respected, and maybe even feeling a little closer to the person than you were before.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. Conflict, when handled with care, is just a messy, difficult, sometimes hilarious path to a deeper understanding. It's not the enemy of connection. Avoidance is. And on that note, I feel like we've actually resolved something today, Jake. I feel closer.
Same here. I'm glad we could have a meta-conversation about meta-conversations without needing a single timeout. That's a win. To all our listeners out there, remember to breathe, listen deeply, and when in doubt, just say, "Tell me more."
Beautiful, and thank you for trusting us to be part of your English learning and your life learning. Both are messy, and both are completely worth it. Until next time, take care of your conversations and take care of each other.
See you next time, everyone. And don't forget to let your pottery cracks shine.